The rain hammered against the floor, two ceiling windows of Blake's Hawthorne's penthouse office as Jasmine Rivers stood frozen in the doorway. Her engagement ring caught the lightning's flash, but the diamond sparkle seemed dull compared to the cold fury in her fiancé's eyes. 7 months? Jasmine. Blake's voice cut through the storm outside like a blade. 7 months you've been feeding Camila information about our merger plans. Did you think I'd never find out? Jasmine's heart stopped. The manila folder in Blake's hands contained printouts of emails, bank statements, and what looked like recorded phone conversations. Her name was highlighted in yellow marker across every page. Blake, I don't understand what you're showing me, she whispered, stepping closer. I would never betray you. I love you. He laughed bitterly, tossing the folder onto his mahogany desk. The papers scattered like fallen leaves. Love. Is that what you call selling our wedding plans to my biggest competitor? Camila paid you $50,000 last month alone. The accusation hit her like a physical blow. Jasmine gripped the back of a leather chair to steady herself. That's impossible. I don't even have contact with Camila Santos. You know I've never trusted her. The evidence says otherwise. Blake stood from behind his desk, his 6-foot frame imposing in the dim office light. Bank records don't lie, Jasmine. Neither do recorded phone calls. Her mind raced frantically. 3 days ago, she had been planning their wedding, tasting cakes, and choosing flowers for their December ceremony. Now Blake was looking at her like she was a stranger, like she was his enemy. Please just listen to me, Jasmine pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks. Someone is setting me up. You have to believe me. In 2 weeks, we're supposed to be husband and wife. Blake turned away from her, staring out at the city lights below. The wedding is canceled. I want you out of the penthouse tonight. We'll escort you to pack your belongings. The words echoed in the vast office like gunshots. Jasmine felt her legs give way, and she sank into the chair she'd been gripping. Blake, please don't do this to us. We can work through whatever's happening here. I'm innocent. When he turned back to face her, his green eyes held no warmth. No recognition of the woman he'd proposed to on a beach in Hawaii just 6 months. Earlier, innocent people don't have $50,000 mysteriously appearing in their accounts, he said coldly. Innocent people don't record private conversations about merger strategies and sell them to competitors. 2 security guards appeared in the doorway as if summoned by some invisible signal. Blake nodded toward them without breaking eye contact with Jasmine. Ms. Rivers needs an escort to collect her personal items. Make sure she's off the premises within the hour. Jasmine rose unsteadily to her feet. The engagement ring felt heavy. On her finger, a beautiful lie that now meant nothing. She slipped it off and placed it gently on his desk. I'll prove my innocence, she whispered. And when I do, you'll realize you just destroyed the best thing in your life. Blake's jaw tightened, but he said nothing as she walked toward the door. At the threshold, she turned back one last time. I was going to tell you tonight, she said softly. I'm pregnant, Blake. We're having a baby. For a moment, his composed mask cracked. Something flickered across his features, surprise, pain. Confusion, but it vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Just another lie, he said finally. Get out. 7 years later, the smell of fresh-baked cinnamon rolls filled Rivers' bakery as Jasmine wiped flour from her hands on her apron. The early morning sun streamed through the quaint storefront windows, illuminating the cozy cafe she'd built from nothing in the small town of Meadowbrook. Mama, can we have extra frosting on our birthday cupcakes? Oliver asked, bouncing on his toes beside the display case. Please, Mama? Emma chimed in, her identical green eyes, so much like Blake, sparkling with hope. Jasmine smiled at her. 6-year-old twins, her heart swelling with pride and love. They were her entire world. The 2 beautiful souls who had saved her from drowning in heartbreak after that terrible night in Blake's office. Double frosting for my double trouble. She agreed, ruffling their matching dark hair. But only because it's your birthday. The twins cheered and ran to their favorite corner booth where coloring books and crayons waited. Jasmine watched them settle in, marveling at how different yet similar they were. Oliver was bold and impulsive, always ready for adventure. Emma was thoughtful and artistic, seeing beauty in everything around her. They're growing up so fast, said Rose Rivers, Jasmine's grandmother, emerging from the kitchen with a tray of fresh pastries. 75, Rose still insisted on helping at the bakery every morning. Too fast, Jasmine agreed, her voice tinged with bittersweet emotion. Sometimes I look at them and see so much of him, and it still hurts. Rose set down the tray and placed a gentle hand on her granddaughter's shoulder. Have you ever thought about telling them the truth about their father? Jasmine's smile faded. It was a conversation they'd had countless times over the years. The twins believed their father was a businessman who had died before they were born. It was easier than explaining that their father had chosen to believe she was a traitor rather than trust in their love. What would I tell them, Grandma Rose? That their father is one of the richest men in America, but he threw us away like garbage. That he never even tried to find us. Maybe he doesn't know where to look, Rose suggested gently. Meadowbrook is a far cry from the penthouse life you used to live. Before Jasmine could respond, the bell above the bakery door chimed. A group of adults entered, followed by a chattering line of 6-year-olds wearing matching blue t-shirts. Welcome. Two Rivers Bakery, Jasmine called out, switching to her professional smile. Field trip day. From Meadowbrook Elementary, confirmed the teacher, a kind-faced woman named Mrs. Peterson. We're on our way to the Metropolitan Science Museum, but the children heard about your famous hot chocolate. As the kids lined up excitedly at the counter, Oliver and Emma abandoned their coloring to join their classmates. Jasmine busied herself, preparing hot chocolate and bagging cookies for the young visitors. This is our mama's bakery, Emma announced proudly to her classmates. She makes the best cupcakes in the whole world. And she tells the best bedtime stories, Oliver added. She knows everything about princes and princesses and happy endings. Jasmine's heart warmed at their innocent pride. These children were her redemption, her proof that something beautiful could grow from the ashes of betrayal. After the field trip group departed with their treats, the bakery settled into its usual morning rhythm. Jasmine was arranging fresh muffins in the display case when her phone rang. Rivers Bakery, this is Jasmine. Ms. Rivers? The voice was unfamiliar, professional. This is Principal Martinez from Meadowbrook Elementary. I'm calling about Oliver and Emma. Jasmine's blood turned to ice. What's wrong? Are they hurt? No, they're fine, the principal assured her quickly. But there's been an incident during their field trip. They've gotten separated from their group at the Science Museum. Security's looking for them, but we thought you should know. Phone nearly slipped from Jasmine's trembling fingers. I'm on my way. She grabbed her keys and purse, calling to Rose that she had an emergency. The 40-minute drive to the city felt like an eternity as worst-case scenarios played in her mind. At the Metropolitan Science Museum, Blake Hawthorne straightened his tie as he prepared to address the board of directors. Gathering in the museum's private conference room, Hawthorne Industries was the museum's largest corporate sponsor, and today's meeting would determine funding for the new children's education wing. He was reviewing his presentation notes when commotion erupted in the main lobby below. The conference room's glass walls, he could see security guards moving quickly. Their radios crackling with urgent communications, sir. His assistant, James, appeared at his elbow. There are 2 missing children from a school group. Security is conducting a search. Blake glanced at his watch. The meeting was scheduled to begin in 10 minutes, but something about the situation nagged at him. He'd always had a soft spot for children, though. He'd buried that instinct deep after. Jasmine's betrayal had destroyed his dreams of having a family. Let me know if they need additional resources, he told James. Then returned his attention to his notes. But concentration proved impossible as the search intensified below. Through the glass, Blake watched security guards checking every exhibit, every corner of the vast museum. Then he saw them. 2 small figures emerged from behind the dinosaur exhibit, holding hands and looking around with wide, uncertain eyes. A boy and a girl, identical except for the girl's longer hair, both with dark locks and features that made Blake's breath catch in his throat. He was staring at his own childhood face, multiplied by 2. The resemblance was so striking that several museum visitors had stopped to stare as security guards approached the children. Blake found himself moving toward the elevator without conscious thought, his presentation forgotten. Oliver, Emma, there you are. A security guard knelt beside the twins, his voice gentle but relieved. Your teacher has been looking everywhere. For you, we got lost looking at the rocket ships, the boy Oliver explained matter-of-factly. But Emma remembereth way back to the dinosaurs. I like the pretty crystals best, Emma added, her voice soft and sweet. They sparkle like Mama's ring used to. Blake stepped closer, his heart pounding with impossible recognition. These children looked exactly like the photos of himself at age 6 that his mother kept on her mantle. Same green eyes, the same stubborn chin, even the same cowlick that defied any attempt at neat combing. What are your full names, sweethearts? Security guard asked, pulling out a radio to report their location. Oliver Rivers, the boy announced. Emma Rivers, the girl whispered shyly. Blake's world tilted on its axis. Rivers Jasmine's maiden name. The ground seemed to shift beneath his feet as 7 years of assumptions crumbled in an instant. Where's your mama? The guard continued kindly. She has the best bakery in Meadowbrook, Emma said proudly. She makes birthday cakes and tells stories about happy endings. Mama says our daddy was a prince who had to go to heaven before we were born, Oliver added with 6-year-old logic. But someday we'll meet him and he'll know we're his because we have his eyes. Blake staggered backward, his chest tight with shock and a pain so intense it felt physical. These were his children, his and Jasmine's. The baby she'd told him about that final night there had been 2 babies. For 7 years, he'd had a son and daughter living less than 50 miles away, and he'd never known. For 7 years, they'd grown up believing their father was dead while he'd convinced himself that Jasmine's pregnancy had been just another lie. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone, his fingers moving automatically to dial a number he'd memorized but never called. Find me everything about Jasmine Rivers in Meadowbrook, he told his private investigator, his voice hoarse with emotion. I need to know where she lives, where she works, everything about her life for the past 7 years. And the children? The investigator asked. Blake watched as Oliver and Emma were reunited with their panicked teacher, their innocent laughter echoing through the museum lobby. The children too, he whispered. I need to know everything about my children. As the school group departed, Blake remained frozen in the lobby, watching until the last glimpse of dark hair disappeared through the museum's revolving doors. 20 minutes later, he was in his car, driving toward Meadowbrook with his heart hammering against his ribs and 7 years of regret weighing on his shoulders. He had found them. After all this time, after convincing himself he was better off alone, fate had placed his children directly in his path. Now he had to find their mother and discover the truth that had been hidden from him for 7 long years. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Main Street as Blake's black sedan pulled up in front of Rivers Bakery. Through the quaint windows, he could see Jasmine moving behind the counter, her auburn hair catching the light as she worked. 7 years had only made her more beautiful, adding a mature grace to the young woman he had once loved beyond reason. His hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. What would he say to her? How could he explain that he'd just discovered he had 2 children, 2 perfect little beings who carried his eyes and her stubborn spirit? The bell above the bakery door chimed as he entered, and the warm scent of vanilla and cinnamon enveloped him like a forgotten embrace. Jasmine looked up from arranging cupcakes in the display case, and the color drained from her face when she saw him. Blake. His name fell from her lips like a prayer and a curse combined. For a moment, neither of them moved. The bakery seemed frozen in time, with only the soft jazz music playing from hidden speakers breaking the silence. Then Jasmine's protective instincts kicked in, and she glanced quickly toward the back room where she could hear Oliver and Emma's voices. What are you doing here? She asked, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Blake stepped closer to the counter, noting how she unconsciously moved to block his view of the back room. I saw them today, at the museum. Jasmine's breath caught, but she lifted, her chin defiantly. I don't know what you're talking about. Oliver and Emma, he said softly. They have my eyes, Jasmine. They looked exactly like I did at their age. Tears gathered in her eyes, but her voice remained strong. You made your choice 7 years ago. You threw me out like garbage and told me never to come back, 'cause I thought you had betrayed me, Blake said, his own voice cracking. I thought the pregnancy was another lie to manipulate me, and now she whispered. Blake ran a hand through his hair, the same nervous gesture she remembered from their happiest days together. Now I know I made the biggest mistake of my life. Those children are mine, aren't they? Before Jasmine could answer, Oliver came bounding out of the back room, stopping short when he saw the tall stranger in the expensive suit. "Mama, who's that?" he asked with 6-year-old directness. Blake's breath caught as he looked down at his son. The resemblance was even more striking up close. Oliver had his stubborn chin and the same cowlick that had frustrated Blake's own mother for years. "This is Mr. Hawthorne," Jasmine said carefully. "He's just visiting our town." Emma appeared beside her brother, shyer, but equally curious. When her green eyes met Blake's, recognition flickered between them like an electric current. She tilted her head, studying him with the same analytical expression Blake used when solving complex business problems. "You have eyes like ours," she observed quietly. Blake knelt down to their level, his heart hammering. "I do. That's very observant of you, Emma." Her eyes widened. "How do you know my name?" "I heard your teacher say it at the museum today," Blake explained gently. "You and your brother got lost looking at the rocket ships." Oliver perked up immediately. "Did you see the Mars rover exhibit? It was awesome. Mama says maybe someday we can be astronauts and explore space." "That sounds like an amazing dream," Blake said, his voice thick with emotion. "Your mother is very smart to encourage big dreams." Jasmine watched the interaction with growing panic. She could see Blake falling for the children instantly, and she could see Oliver and Emma responding to him with natural curiosity and warmth. The connection was undeniable and terrifying. "Kids, why don't you go upstairs and get ready for dinner?" she said quickly. "Grandma Rose is making your favorite spaghetti." "Can the nice man stay for dinner?" Emma asked innocently. He seems sad. "And Mama always says good food makes sad people feel better." Blake's eyes met Jasmine's across the children's heads, and she saw her own pain reflected there. "That's very kind of you, sweetheart, but I'm sure Mr. Hawthorne has to go back to the city." "Actually," Blake said quietly, "I'd very much like to stay if you'll have me." The twins cheered and ran upstairs, leaving Blake and Jasmine alone again. The silence stretched between them, heavy with 7 years of hurt and misunderstanding. "You can't just walk back into our lives," Jasmine said finally. "They don't know who you are, and I won't have them hurt when you decide we're not worth your time again." "I never decided you weren't worth my time," Blake said, moving closer to the counter. "I thought you had sold us out. I thought everything between us was a lie." "Based on what? Some fake evidence that Camila probably planted?" Blake's eyes sharpened. "What do you know about Camila's involvement?" Jasmine laughed bitterly. "Always knew she was behind it, but you chose to believe her over me." "Camila Santos never liked me, Blake. She wanted you for herself, and our engagement threatened her plans." "I had bank records, Jasmine. Recorded phone calls. Fake ones," she shot back. "Did you ever think to verify them? Did you ever consider that the woman who had access to all your business dealings might have the resources to frame me?" Blake's face went pale as the implications hit him. "I never investigated. I just trusted the evidence she brought me." "You trusted her," Jasmine corrected, her voice breaking. "You trusted your business partner over the woman who loved you with everything she had." The truth hung between them like a sword. Blake sank onto one of the small cafe chairs, his head in his hands. "What have I done? 7 years, Jasmine. I missed 7 years of their lives because I was too proud and too stupid to see the truth."
Rose.
Rivers chose that moment to come downstairs, her sharp eyes taking in the scene immediately. She'd lived through enough drama in her 75 years to recognize a crisis when she saw one. "So you're the father," she said to Blake, without preamble. Blake looked up, startled. "Mrs. Rivers, I presume? Grandmother Rivers to you, young man? And you've got some explaining to do if you think you can waltz back into my granddaughters." "Life after putting her through hell." "Grandma Rose," Jasmine warned. "No, honey," Rose said firmly. "This man needs to hear some truths. Do you know what it was like watching her cry herself to sleep every night when she was pregnant? Do you know how many times she called your office, trying to tell you about the babies, only to be told you never wanted to hear from her again?" Blake's head shot up. "You called me?" "Dozens of times," Jasmine whispered. Your secretary always said you'd left strict instructions that I was never to be put through. I never gave those instructions, Blake said hoarsely. I never knew you called, Rose snorted. Convenient. Your business partner probably handled those calls too, didn't she? The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. Yes. Camila had been his right hand for years, managing his schedule, filtering his calls, handling his personal affairs when he was too busy with work. She would have had ample opportunity to intercept Jasmine's attempts at contact. I have to make this right, Blake said, standing abruptly. Tell me what you need. Money for their education, a house, anything. We don't need your money, Jasmine said proudly. We've managed just fine without you. In a tiny apartment above a bakery, Blake's business instincts kicked in. Those kids deserve better. Private schools, college funds, opportunities. Those kids, Jasmine said fiercely, deserve a father who believes in their mother. They deserve a man who won't abandon them the moment someone whispers lies in his ear. Blake flinched at the direct hit. I want to be that man, Jasmine. I want to be their father. Being a father isn't about money or opportunities, Rose interjected. It's about showing up every day, through scraped knees and bad dreams and teenage tantrums. Can you handle that, Mr. Billionaire? Before Blake could answer, Oliver's voice called from upstairs. Mama, Emma won't stop singing and I can't concentrate on my Legos. I'm not singing too loud, Emma protested.
Ow.
I'm practicing for the school concert. Despite everything, Jasmine smiled at their familiar bickering. That's what being a parent really looks like, she told Blake. Not boardrooms and trust funds. Blake watched her head toward the stairs to referee the sibling dispute, and something in his chest cracked open. This was what he'd lost. Not just a woman he'd loved, but a family. A real, messy, beautiful family where children sang too loudly and argued over Legos and needed their mother to make everything right. She's been both parents to them all these years, Rose said quietly, settling into the chair beside him. Jasmine never missed a school play or a soccer game. She worked double shifts to pay for Emma's art classes and Oliver's karate lessons. She read them stories every night and held them when they had nightmares. While I built an empire, Blake said bitterly. While you built walls, Rose corrected. Question is, are you ready to tear them down? Upstairs, they could hear Jasmine negotiating peace between the twins, her voice patient and loving. When she returned, she found Blake staring at a photo on the bakery's community board. It showed Oliver and Emma at last year's Christmas pageant. Dressed as angels, their faces glowing with joy. They're perfect, he said, without turning around. They ask about you sometimes, Jasmine admitted quietly. They don't have a daddy like other kids. I tell them their father was a good man who had to go away and that he would love them if he could. Blake turned to face her, tears in his eyes. Can you ever forgive me? Can they? Before Jasmine could answer, Emma appeared at the bottom of the stairs, having snuck down to eavesdrop. Her small voice cut through the adult conversation like a bell. Are you our real daddy? She asked Blake directly. The question hung in the air like a challenge to everything Blake thought he knew about second chances and redemption. Blake knelt down to Emma's eye level, his heart breaking and healing simultaneously as he looked into her innocent face. The truth had been waiting for this moment, and there was no hiding from it anymore. Yes, sweetheart, he said gently, his voice thick with emotion. I'm your daddy. Emma studied him with the serious expression she'd inherited from him. Then, slowly reached out to touch his face. You're not dead like Mama said. No, baby, I'm not dead. I just didn't know where you and Oliver were. Oliver thundered down the stairs, having heard the conversation from above. Really? You're our real dad? It's the one with the same eyes? Really? Blake confirmed, opening his arms as both children moved closer to examine this miracle that had appeared. In their bakery, Jasmine watched with tears streaming down her face as her children met their father for the first time. 7 years of careful explanations and gentle lies crumbled in the face of this simple, perfect truth. Why didn't you come find us before? Oliver asked, with typical 6-year-old logic. Blake looked up at Jasmine. Seeking permission to navigate this delicate explanation, she nodded slightly, trusting him to handle their innocent questions with care. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, Blake said carefully. I made a very big mistake that kept me away from you and your mama. But I'm here now, and I want to be part of your lives, if you'll let me. Will you come to my art show next week? Emma asked immediately. I painted a picture of a family, but I didn't know what Daddy looked like, so I just drew question marks for his face. Blake's chest tightened painfully. Would love to come to your art show. And maybe you could paint my face in now that you know what I look like. Can you play catch? Oliver wanted to know. Tommy's dad plays catch with him every Saturday. Used to be pretty good at baseball, Blake said with a smile. Would you like to play catch tomorrow? The twins' excitement was infectious, but Jasmine remained guarded. She'd seen Blake's charm work magic on business partners and competitors alike. She couldn't let herself forget that this man had thrown her away once before. Rose cleared her throat diplomatically. Well, this is all very touching, but dinner won't cook itself. Blake, you're welcome to stay if you can handle spaghetti and meatballs instead of whatever fancy food you're used to. I can't remember the last time I had a home-cooked meal, Blake admitted. It sounds perfect. As Rose bustled back to the kitchen and the children ran upstairs to wash their hands, Blake found himself alone with Jasmine again. The weight of 7 lost years pressed down on them both. They're amazing, he said softly. You've done an incredible job raising them. Here. Good kids, Jasmine replied, her guard still up. But Blake, I need you to understand something. You can't just waltz back in here and disrupt their lives because you finally feel guilty about the past. This isn't about guilt, Blake said, stepping closer. This is about them, about us, about the family we should have been all along. There is no us, Jasmine said firmly. There's them, and they deserve to know their father. But you and I are finished. We were finished 7 years ago when you chose to believe the worst about me. Blake's phone buzzed with an incoming call. He glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened. It's Camila. I need to take this. Jasmine watched him step outside, old jealousy and suspicion rising in her chest. Even now, Camila Santos could command his immediate attention. Blake, darling, Camila's honey-sweet voice purred through the phone. I heard you took an unexpected trip out of the city. Is everything all right? Everything's fine, Blake said tersely. I'm handling some personal business. Personal business? You know, you can tell me anything. We're partners, after all. Blake looked through the bakery window at Jasmine helping Rose set the table for dinner at his children, laughing as they folded napkins. Actually, Camila, I need to ask you something. 7 years ago, when you brought me that evidence about Jasmine, where exactly did you get those recordings? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Why are you asking about ancient history? That woman is in the past where she belongs. Answer the question. I don't remember the specifics, Camila said carefully. It was a long time ago, Blake. Why are you digging up old wounds? Blake's jaw clenched. Even now, she couldn't admit the truth. I'll call you back. He ended the call and stood outside the bakery for several long moments, watching his family through the window. They looked so perfect together, so natural. This was what he'd thrown away for his pride and his inability to trust the woman he claimed to love. When he returned inside, dinner was ready. The small table barely accommodated 5 people, but somehow it felt more intimate and warm than any of the grand dinner parties Blake had hosted in his penthouse. Oliver regaled them with stories about his latest karate class, complete with dramatic reenactments that nearly knocked over his water glass. Emma showed Blake her sketchbook, filled with drawings of flowers and animals and imaginary castles where princesses lived happily ever after. This one's my favorite, she said, pointing to a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands. Under a rainbow, it's me and Oliver and Mama, but now maybe I could add you too. Blake had to excuse himself to the bathroom to compose himself before he started crying in front of the children. When he returned, Jasmine was clearing the dishes, while Rose supervised the twins' toothbrushing routine upstairs. They love you. Already, Jasmine observed quietly. I love them too, Blake replied, more than I knew possible, and I love you, Jasmine. I never stopped. She set down the plates with shaking hands. Don't do this to me again. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm telling you the truth. Blake moved closer, backing her gently against the kitchen counter. I spent 7 years trying to forget you, trying to convince myself I was better off alone, but I wasn't living, Jasmine. I was just existing. And what happens when the next Camila comes along with evidence that I'm not good enough for you? Jasmine's voice was barely a whisper. What happens when you decide we're too much trouble for your perfect billionaire lifestyle? There will never be another Camila, Blake said fiercely. I know now that she set you up. I should have trusted you from the beginning. But you didn't, Jasmine said, tears flowing freely now. When it mattered most, you chose to believe I would betray you rather than trust in our love. Blake cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing away her tears. Then let me spend the rest of my life proving that I'll never make that mistake. Again, let me be the man you deserved 7 years ago. I can't, she whispered. I can't risk my heart again. I won't risk theirs. Before Blake could respond, his phone rang again. This time it was James, his assistant, and the man's voice was urgent. Sir, you need to know about Ms. Santos. Our IT department found some irregularities in the old server files. It looks like someone has been accessing archived emails and financial records from 7 years ago. Blake's blood ran cold. What kind of irregularities? Fabricated communications, sir? Bank transfers that were made to look like they came from external sources but actually originated from company accounts that Ms. Santos had access to. Are you telling me she framed Jasmine? I'm telling you, we have proof, sir. Ms. Santos created false evidence to make it appear that Ms. Rivers was selling company secrets. The recordings were digitally altered using voice samples from Ms. Rivers' presentations. Blake closed his eyes, the full weight of his betrayal washing over him. Send me everything. Every piece of evidence, every file, every detail. Sir, Ms. Santos is requesting an emergency meeting. She says it's about a family situation that could damage the company's reputation. Blake's eyes snapped open. Somehow Camila had found out about the twins. She was already planning her next move. Scheduled a meeting for tomorrow morning. Blake said grimly, "It's time to end this." When he hung up, Jasmine was watching him with a mixture of hope and fear. The evidence against you is fake, he said simply. All of it. Camila manufactured everything to drive us apart. Jasmine sank into a chair, the vindication she'd dreamed of for 7 years finally arriving. I knew it. I always knew it. Ken, you forgive me? Blake asked, kneeling beside her chair. Do you give us another chance? Before Jasmine could answer, they heard footsteps on the stairs. The twins appeared in their pajamas, ready for bedtime stories. Daddy, will you read to us? Emma asked shyly. The word daddy hit Blake like a physical force. These children, his children, were ready to accept him into their lives with the pure trust that only kids possessed. I would love to, he said hoarsely. They settled into the small living room above the bakery, Emma curled against Blake's right side and Oliver against his left, while Jasmine sat in the rocking chair across from them. Blake read from a book about brave knights and clever princesses, but his attention kept drifting to the miracle of holding his children, of being part of this evening routine he'd missed for 6 years. When the story ended and the twins were tucked into their beds, Blake and Jasmine stood together in the hallway, the weight of the day finally settling over them. I need time, Jasmine said quietly. The children can get to know you, but I need time to trust again. I'll wait, Blake promised, however long it takes. And I need you to prove that you're serious about being their father, not just showing up when it's convenient, but being there for school, plays and scraped knees and homework help. I'll be there for everything, Blake swore. I'll be the father they deserve and the man you needed me to be 7 years ago. Jasmine studied his face in the dim hallway light, searching for the truth in his eyes. What she found there wasn't the arrogant billionaire who had thrown her away, but the man she'd fallen in love with years ago, vulnerable, sincere, and desperate. For a second chance. Okay, she whispered. We'll try. Blake's relief was palpable. Thank you. You won't regret this. I hope not, Jasmine said. Because if you hurt those children, Blake, if you decide this family life isn't what you want after all, I'll disappear again. And this time, you'll never find us. Blake nodded, understanding the weight of her threat and the depth of her love. For their children, I won't hurt them. I won't hurt any of you ever again. As he prepared to leave for the hotel where he'd booked a room, Blake paused at the bakery door. Tomorrow, after I deal with Camila, I want to take you and the kids somewhere special, Will you come with me? Jasmine hesitated, then nodded. We're home, Blake said simply. I want to show them the house where their father grew up. It's a place where I've been waiting for my family to come back to me. The next morning brought sunshine and the promise of new beginnings. Blake arrived at the bakery early, bringing coffee and pastries from the city's most exclusive cafe, only to find that nothing compared to the simple joy of watching Jasmine make pancakes while Oliver and Emma helped measure ingredients. His phone buzzed with messages from Camila, each more urgent than the last, but Blake ignored them all. For the first time in 7 years, business wasn't his priority. His family was. After breakfast, they drove to Blake's estate in the hills outside the city. The twins were awed by the sprawling mansion and manicured gardens, but it was the house in the ancient oak that truly captured their imagination. I built that when I was about your age, Blake told them. Watching Oliver immediately begin planning his assault on the rope ladder. Can we play in it? Emma asked. It's yours now, Blake said. All of this is yours, as the children ran off. To explore, Blake found himself alone with Jasmine on the garden terrace, where he'd once planned to build her an art studio. It's beautiful, she said, taking in the view of the valley below. It's been empty, Blake replied. I always imagined filling it with children's laughter, but after you left, I could never bring myself to change anything. Blake, Jasmine began, but he held up a hand. I know you need time. I'm not asking for promises. I just want you to see what I'm offering, not just money or luxury, but a real home. A place where our children can grow up safe and loved. Before Jasmine could respond, they heard a car pulling up the long driveway. Blake's expression darkened as he recognized Camila's silver Porsche. She found us, he said grimly. Camila stepped out of her car, looking every inch the successful businesswoman, in her designer suit and perfect makeup, but there was something desperate in her eyes as she approached the terrace. Blake, we need to talk, she said, barely glancing at Jasmine. Privately. Anything you have to say, you can say in front of Jasmine, Blake replied coldly. Camila's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the calculating woman beneath. Fine. I know about the children. I know you think you found some happy family reunion, but you're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was trusting you, Blake shot back. I protected you, Camila hissed. She would have ruined everything we built together. She would have made you weak? You mean she would have made me human? Blake corrected. Something you never understood. Camila turned to Jasmine with undisguised hatred. He'll get tired of playing house. Men like Blake don't settle down with small-town bakers in their baggage. When the novelty wears off, he'll throw you away. Again, maybe, Jasmine said calmly, surprising both Blake and Camila, but that's his choice to make. Just like it was his choice to believe your lies 7 years ago. Blake stepped forward, placing himself between the two women. It's over, Camila. I know what you did. I've proof of everything. For the first time, real fear flickered across Camila's features. You can't prove anything. Bank records altered. Audio files. Fabricated emails. My IT team found it all. Blake's voice was deadly quiet. You destroyed 7 years of my life because you were jealous of what Jasmine and I had. I loved you, Camila whispered, her composure finally cracking. I loved you, and you never even saw me. Because what you felt wasn't love, Blake said. With surprising gentleness, it was possession. Love doesn't destroy the person it claims to protect. Camila looked around desperately, seeing her carefully constructed world crumbling. If you think I'm going down alone, you're wrong. I'll tell everyone about your bastard children. I'll destroy your reputation. Blake's expression hardened. Try it, I dare you. His children are the best thing I've ever done with my life. I'll shout it from every rooftop in the city before I let you shame them. Camila realized she'd lost. Without another word, she turned and walked back to her car, leaving Blake and Jasmine alone on the terrace. Is it really over? Jasmine asked quietly. It's over, Blake confirmed. She faced criminal charges for fraud and corporate espionage. Her career is finished. From the treehouse came the sound of their children's laughter, pure and joyous and full of life. Blake took Jasmine's hand, and for the first time in 7 years, she didn't pull away. I love you, he said simply. I never stopped loving you, not for one single day. Jasmine looked into his eyes and saw her own reflection there, saw the future they could build together if she was brave enough to trust again. "I love you too," she whispered. "God help me, I never stopped either." When Blake kissed her, it was like coming home after a long, difficult journey. The kiss held 7 years of pain and longing, but also the promise of healing and new beginnings. "Mama, Daddy," Oliver's voice called from the treehouse. "Come see what we found." Hand in hand, they walked across the garden to where their children waited, ready to begin the life they should have had all along.